Welcome to DEI Mythbusting, tackling the most common DEI-related myths, a micro-learning video from Screen Access Alberta. This video is part of a series to help you foster more inclusion on set for all type of screen productions. To learn more about Screen Access Alberta's commitment to diversifying Alberta's film and television industry workforce, visit our website at screenaccessalberta.ca/equity. DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion, is a hot topic right now. And with any hot topic comes misinformation, misunderstandings, assumptions, and myths. This video is meant to help dispel myths, replace them with facts so you can make choices about how to best implement diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives on your productions. The following sections detail 11 of the most common DEI myths circling around. These are, of course, every myth about DEI, nor does this video get into some of the legitimate critiques of DEI and how it's practiced. This is a starting place to build your knowledge about DEI, and knowledge is power. It might be common to think that we don't have any work to do to support diversity, equity, and inclusion in Canada because we're already there. These four myths shed a little bit of light into history, current practices, and what DEI both is and isn't. First, but Canada doesn't have the same history of racism as the US does, but Canada had the Underground Railroad. Canada is no stranger to discrimination, racism, and exclusion. Though we may have an international reputation for being friendly and welcoming, Canada has a long history of systematically supporting racial and social exclusion. Unfortunately, the way we learn about our history tends to downplay the role of racism in Canada. Slavery did exist in Canada. The Ku Klux Klan was a prominent force in Alberta politics. The Federal Elections Act only removed race as grounds for exclusion from voting in 1948, with First Nations people not being granted full federal voting rights without giving up their status until 1960. The last residential school closed in 1996. The 60s scoop is being continued through modern child welfare policies. The Canadian Housing Forum on Reddit is filled with anti-immigrant vitriol. Racism, unfortunately, is live and well in Canada. It may be different than the US, but it's still here and dangerous. Myth 2. Honestly, people just need to get over the past. Why do I have to fix history? Well, yes, no one in this training is responsible for residential schools, slavery, or housing policy, but most of us benefit from the legacy and the harms those systems have caused continue today. So while you're not responsible for how we got here, you are responsible for what happens now and where we go next. It's imperative that we do all our best to rectify discrimination and improve the conditions for all people. Myth 3. We can't hire unqualified people just to meet some sort of diversity quota. To be clear, no one wants you to hire unqualified candidates to meet an arbitrary quota. That's bad for everyone. But we would question whether or not you really can't find qualified BIPOC folks to fill your roles, or whether or not your approach to finding qualified people may be inadvertently excluding BIPOC folks from being hired. In fact, there's little evidence to support the claim that there simply aren't enough Black, Indigenous, queer candidates for most roles in most industries. Thinking about how you find qualified candidates for your cast and crew and what you mean by qualified might help you look past biases you didn't know you had and welcome a more diverse and still talented workforce to your productions. Which leads us to myth 4. Listen, I got to where I am based on merit alone. Why can't they? This myth is one of the most common about DEI initiatives because it assumes that merit means fair. The myth of meritocracy suggests that everyone who is applying for a position, promotion, or project is being given those opportunities based on skill alone, but that is virtually never the case. Everything from where you got to see your first movie, to who gave you your first camera, to which school you went to what mentorship opportunities you received, to who your network is, will affect your employment prospects. And BIPOC folks have been continually excluded from those opportunities. It's incredibly common for people to give opportunities to others who are close to them or who remind them of themselves. And that tends to keep opportunities in small circles, like families, social groups, and yes, race and gender groups. It's important to note that this doesn't mean that people who receive these opportunities aren't hardworking or deserving. What it means is that they started out with more advantages than others may have had. Diversity, equity, and inclusion doesn't look to take away from hardworking people. In fact, it looks to bring fairness back into the equation and ensure that people who have been historically excluded are offered the same chances with all the same advantages as others. Only when we start from a place of equality can we truly see merit. Here's 5. What about reverse racism? Isn't it just as bad? Reverse racism is a myth often used to deflect criticism of white folks when anti-BIPOC racism is pointed out. Stereotypes about white people do exist, but this comes in the form of racial prejudice, not racism. Racism requires a power dynamic which BIPOC folks don't collectively hold over white people. While radical prejudices are problematic, the effect of anti-BIPOC racism is much more significant and deeply embedded into social institutions. Myth 6. My life hasn't been easy just because I'm white. That's fair. All people face different challenges throughout their lives, and whiteness isn't a force field against those. When people mention white privilege, it isn't intended to dismiss or make light of an individual's life story or experience. However, it is important to know that in a larger social sense, whiteness doesn't harm people either. White privilege means that your skin color has not been one of the reasons your life has had challenges. The same cannot be said for BIPOC folks. Myth 7. We can only do so much. If we focus on race, aren't we ignoring other problems? It's important to remember that we can do more than one thing at a time. Focusing on DEI or addressing racism does not inherently mean we are ignoring other concerns. First, equality isn't pie. There's lots to go around, and ensuring that historically excluded people are included doesn't mean pushing anyone else out of the conversation. Second, racism rarely shows up alone. Racism is interlinked with multiple issues like gender discrimination, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, and more. When we seek to tackle exclusions for one group, we often help more people than we might originally imagine. Think about an automatic opening door. It was designed for people in wheelchairs, but so many people benefit from them, including parents with strollers, someone with their hands full, or someone with a compromised immune system who's trying to limit how many public services they touch. So, no, focusing on racism doesn't erase other problems. And more often than not, addressing racism helps foster even broader inclusion, leading to more diversity of thought, more creative solutions, and better outcomes. Myth 8. Sure, there are still a few bad apples, but I don't see skin color. Racism isn't just an individual problem. It's also a systematic and institutional problem. Racism exists everywhere, and people who are actively anti-racist still need to work within racist systems. But also, the goal of anti-racist practice isn't to stop seeing color. In fact, recognizing difference is fundamental to anti-racist practices. The goal is to recognize that people of color have different experiences with people and institutions, and then to work to eliminate exclusions and build equity wherever possible so that everyone can benefit. Myth 9. I don't care what people do in their own lives, but do they have to parade it in front of everyone? Part of living in a society is interacting with other people. And those other people might be different than me or you or anyone else. Living life without fear of racism, homophobia, transphobia, or other forms of discrimination isn't parading one's lifestyle. It's being part of a community. Think of all the times you see heterosexual people holding hands in public, hugging, or kissing. None of this is considered parading because we've accepted heterosexuality as the norm. So why would the same behavior be viewed differently for a 2S LGBTQ couple? And if we're talking about actual parades, like Pride Parade or cultural festival parades, it's important to remember that a display of community solidarity or visibility and of recognition that the past problems have not all gone away are excellent tactics in bringing attention to the diversity of our communities and beginning a conversation. Myth 10. I just can't get behind performing life-altering surgeries on children when their gender issues may just be a phase. Gender-affirming care is one of the most charged issues people are talking about today, with some of the least information. So let's break it down. What do we mean by gender-affirming care? Gender-affirming care includes a variety of interventions, such as hairstyles and clothing aligned with gender identity, hormone therapy, voice therapy, laser hair removal, and yes, surgery. So first, it's important to separate care from surgery. Care is reversible and generally non-invasive. Surgery is a different category. And in Alberta, gender-affirming surgery is almost never performed on minors. The most common gender-affirming surgery among children, according to one review of medical data, is breast reduction surgery performed overwhelmingly, as in 97% of cases, on young boys who identify as boys but are struggling with breast development during puberty. Finally, myth 11. DEI is just a fad. It'll fade out. DEI is the current way we would describe inclusion work that has been going on for centuries. Sure, as DEI is done now, it may fade out or change. Most things do. But the idea of working together to treat people with dignity and in ways that validate their humanity is not a passing fad. There have always been people who have fought for a more equitable and just society, and we are fortunate enough to be living in a time where that conversation is part of our everyday lives. Lucky? Yes, because we have the chance to be part of an important change that shapes the future of our workforce and our communities. Equity work, whether it's called DEI or something else, isn't a single protest or a single training. It's a way of thinking and engaging with people in a way that builds relationships, centers on empathy, and keeps people safe in what they've historically been unsafe situations. You've likely come across many of these myths before. Some might be ideas you've thought about, and some might be things you've heard about, but not known how to respond to. Now, with a bit more information, you have the tools to help dispel these myths when you come across them. When you do, consider a few things. First, listen to understand. People might be perpetuating the ideas in these myths for different reasons. Try to figure out what the real concern is, why this is coming up, and from there, consider if the person is open to hearing another viewpoint. Second, find points of agreement when trying to help people think about things in a new way. It's important to build bridges and find connection. More often than not, folks resistant to DEI initiatives would agree we should be focusing on what really matters. Yes, me too. And what matters more than treating people with dignity or rooting our opinions in facts. Finally, keep your values clear. While finding points of commonality is important, we lose credibility when we compromise our values. Hold firm, but remember most people are doing the best they can with what they have available on any given day. Try to give them more. Thank you for taking the time to challenge some myths about DEI. For more information, micro-learning videos, and resources to help build inclusive on-set experiences, visit the Screen Access Alberta website at screenaccessalberta.ca/equity.